Once a giant, always a giant.
Today we are here with one of the most accomplished, one of the greatest journalists to ever do it. One of the guys, you can't have journalism without this guy, Mr. Rob Parker. How are you doing today?
Keith, thank you, my man. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
No, thank you, really. So, first, I just want to ask you, like, I know I probably ask this question all the time. What's the best piece of advice that you've ever given to an upcoming journalist that you were just for sure that you would give out to other journalists?
It's really about, it's such a competitive business, right? So you got to be willing to do the extra stuff, work the extra mile, be willing to go anywhere to get your start, right? You might be from LA, but the chances of you getting your first job in LA aren't good. So, like, I'm from New York. My first job was in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. It's not some great bustling metropolis, but that's where I got my start. And other guys who I know in the business, it's the same thing. You got to be willing to go anywhere to get a start. And you know what? There's a lot of people who are talented, but my advice to you is don't let anybody outwork you. Nobody can outwork me. They might be better than me. They might have better skills in certain things that they do, but they can't outwork me.
No, like you said, your work ethic is probably to get to where you are right now has to be like amazing. Like accomplishing what you've accomplished? What is your motivation? What keeps you going to want to improve every day?
This is the only thing I ever wanted to do since I was 9 years old. I wanted to be a sports writer, and then radio and television kind of fell into place. But I've never wanted to do anything else. And I love sports and I love to communicate, whether it's writing a column or talking on the radio or doing a TV hit or whatever it is. I just enjoy it. So I'm motivated to be the best I can every day. I've been doing it for 35 years. I've worked all over the country. I've had every job you could imagine. And it doesn't get old to me. The day it gets old is probably the day that I retire and move on and do something else. But I still enjoy it every day, still get a high, seeing my name in print or, doing a radio show and having people respond back to me or whatever it might be, or somebody saying, hey, that was funny. I saw you on TV today and you were funny, or you made a great point. Those things still register.
Yeah, that's a very amazing thing to hear. How humbled you are to be. Like I know a lot of people who have accomplished half of what you are, and then they're not as like they don't get back to the people who were helping them when they were on their way up and things like that. But looking back, and I know this isn't something you hear a lot, but you were the first African American sports journalist for the Detroit Press in 1993. What is that like to be the first of something, especially in something that you love so much?
Yeah, I mean, I was the first Black sports columnist for the Detroit Free Press. The Detroit Free Press was 161 years old when they hired me back in 1993, which seems incredible when you think about Detroit. Detroit's a Black city that no Black guy had ever had a column at that paper, which is a great paper, and it was an honor. I was 29 years old when they hired me. Back then, there were only 10 Black sports columnists in the entire country. I was number 10. And you know how many newspapers, daily newspapers? You ready? There were 1,600 daily newspapers and only 10 blacks. That's it. And I was one of them. And it's one of my, to me, and I've done a lot, accomplished a lot in my career, but I still think that's the pinnacle. That's the top for me to be able to get that opportunity at the age I got it, to be able to represent a city like Detroit that adopted me. I'm from New York originally, but they took me in as their own. And to give the fans a voice, in the media and in the paper was special. And I worked there, wound up working there 20 years. And, I got married there. I got divorced there. I own a barber shop still. We're about to have our 20th anniversary at the barber shop. So all those good things happened to me in Detroit. So um, it's special.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I didn't know that you had a barbershop in Detroit, especially for such a long time. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's called Sporty Cuts. It's on West 7 Mile Road. You heard of 8 Mile, the movie, right? A
Yeah.
7 Mile is where the barber shop. So it's in the hood, it's in the community, and it's one of the best investments I ever made. That's another thing as you go along, Keith, in your career, whatever. Always make sure that you have your own. It's okay to work for a company and be an employee, but also have your side gigs, have multiple streams of income, have different things coming in that you don't have to rely on one thing if it doesn't go right or it doesn't work out. So that barbershop has been a godsend. And for 20 years, the people in Detroit and the community have supported us, me and my partner, Tico Edwards. So it's been great. Um, I'm thrilled to have a barbershop.
Yeah, that's amazing. You talked about you touched on it a little bit about having your own, but like growing up, and every sports journalist is different in many ways, and people mirror themselves after people who they watched or learned from. Like, how did you find your personality as not only as a broadcaster but as a journalist, and what helped you with finding yourself?
Great question. Just growing up watching other people, there were a few people there was a guy named Dick Young. He was a longtime columnist, sports columnist at the Daily News in New York. And he would make me so mad. I would read his column and he would make me mad or react. And then later on, I realized, like that's what a column is supposed to do. Have you either love it or hate it, but not be indifferent about it. If it doesn't move you one way or the other, you probably haven't done your job. So he was influential on me as far as that. There was a guy on TV in New York growing up, and his name was Warner Wolf. He worked for CBS Channel 2 in New York, and he was very creative and loud and opinionated, and I liked him a lot. I used to watch him religiously, and so those are people who influenced me. A couple of radio shows I used to listen to as a kid. John Sterling had a show. Art Rush Jr. had a show. Both of them were very good, and I used to listen all the time. And then probably the person that had the most impact directly was Joanne Lee, who was my professor. I had my master's degree from Columbia University, and she was my professor. And she called me into her office one day, and at that time I was going to school full time, and I was a reporter for the Daily News in New York. And at that time, the Daily News was the largest paper in the country. So I was doing both. I was about 24 years old. And she called me into her office. She said, Robert, you know how to write a story. You know what the lead is. You know everything. She said, but you're way ahead of your classmates, and I need more from you. I need you to give me more. You can't skate through Columbia because of where you are and the knowledge you already have. I need you to dig a little deeper. So she was a small woman. I'm 6'4". She came up behind me. She pretended like she had a knife in her hand.
Mm-hmm.
She walked up behind me and she stuck it in my back and she said, I want you to take the knife, stick it in, turn it, and draw blood. That's what I want from you. And those are the words I've lived by my whole career.
Wow, that's amazing. And I know, like, I'm currently in school still, and a lot of teachers don't invest in a lot of students like that. So I can only imagine how special that must have been to have that type of relationship with the teacher, especially at the college level. Um, Now that you're accomplished what you have, and now you're a bit older than you were, what's one piece of advice that you would give back to your 18-year-old self and your aspiring journalist self that you would just know? I know you're in a great spot now. You've done so much, but what's one thing that you would tell your 18-year-old self?
It's more about enjoying every step of the way. I think the problem that, I don't want to sound like the old guy, hey, you kids, get off my lawn guy. But I think everybody wants everything yesterday. You know what I mean? Like there's a process. You have to work your way through it. Everybody you see on TV and all these people, they didn't just show up last week.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen A was a high school sports writer in North Carolina and New York, and he worked his way up. He covered Temple basketball. and the 76ers, and then he got a column. Skip Bayless worked for newspapers all over the country, the Dallas Morning News, San Jose Mercury News, and the Chicago Tribune. Like nobody who you see, Michael Wilbon worked for the Washington Post. I could go on and on and on about all these people. Michael Smith worked for the Boston Globe. Like they all put in their time and they work their way up. And I think young people want to be on TV debating sports. Like their first job. It doesn't go like that.
Mm-hmm.
You have to put in your time. You have to put in your, give me a reason why I should listen to your opinion. Have you covered stuff? Have you talked to people? Do you know what I mean? Like, have you put in to build up a resume for me to say, yeah, I want to hear what Keith has to say on this. You see?
Yeah. Yeah, I totally get that. And it's about like having your own word and being very powerful with it to have people and it's not easy to get to where you want to be. It's you got to start low and you got to keep working at the low until you get that one break, and you just got to keep going from there. When you were writing paper after paper and each column that you were in, what are some bold habits that you would have now that you're excellent in the journalism world? What were some bold habits that you had to keep you getting better and better?
Well, I always asked for help. I never was one that thought like I knew everything. There was a copy editor when I first got to the Daily News. Remember, I was 22 years old when I first started. So, people didn't think I belonged there because, these were veteran guys who had put in time elsewhere. And here I am, 22, and I never covered high schools at the paper, which is unheard of. I mean, I was very fortunate. They hired me, they gave me an opportunity, they threw me right into the fire, and I was able to make it without covering high schools. And so he didn't think I was really belong there. So he gave me a hard time. I would come in and he would say, that your story, that's not good enough. It needs work or whatever. So a lot of young guys probably would have shied away from him and been afraid to go near the guy.
Yeah.
But I didn't do that. I used him to make me better. So I would come in every day with my story and grab the paper and go straight to his desk. And I would say, hey, John, how can you help me make this better? Do you see what I'm saying? I put the onus on him to help me. And after a while, he didn't want to help me anymore because he understood that he wasn't getting a rise out of me. You know what I mean? That I'm now making you make me better. And so that's what I would tell young people is don't run away from people like that. Make them explain to you how if they can't just say you did a bad job on that story, ask them what wasn't right and how can I make it better? Do you see what I'm saying? So your whole thing should be put the onus on them to help you be better.
Yeah, growing. I know a lot of people who, when they're given some type of criticism, they like to shy away from it or they don't like to hear it. And criticism isn't what it's made out to be. Like a lot of people always think it's a bad thing, but it's actually a really good thing because it helps you increase in whatever you're trying to do, and helps you make better at whatever you're trying to do.
No doubt. Another thing too is like if somebody says to you, don't do this, don't do that, like habits. They pointed out things to me early on. I just eliminated them. I didn't fight with them. Once they made it clear and explained to me why I shouldn't. To this day, if I'm interviewing somebody and they say, I think we're going to win the division this year. Somebody told me when I was 22 years old, take out I think, right? You're quoting the person. So obviously it's what they think. It just slows the quote down. There's no reason, even though you want to quote people accurately, you don't need I think. Just start it with, we're going to win the division this year. Do you see what I'm saying? So once someone explained to me why that wasn't good to leave that in, I never used it again.
Wow, yeah, that's amazing. I'll take that in consideration because I was thinking about it while you were speaking on it, and it's the difference between the two is I think, and it like you said, it slows it down. But once you say we're gonna win the division, it's much more bolder and it gets the point out a lot more.
Right. And it's coming from that person. So obviously it's what they think.
Mhm.
Right. That's obvious.
Yeah. I don't want to keep you too long, so I'm gonna ask one more question. Before we end it off, I know I asked for pieces of advice, but one thing that you may have not said to anybody else, but to African American journalists that are hoping to achieve half of what you have, what is one piece of advice that you would say to get to where you are?
I would say follow your dream and pursue it. Like really, like it's what you eat, breathe, sleep. You should be into it like that. Like the same way that guys want to make it to the NBA and they stay in the gym and they keep putting up shots. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You should keep writing, keep reading, keep articulating, keep talking, debating sports with your friends, or like do your research, do your homework. You know, why do you think to yourself, why do you have this opinion? And it's not enough just to have an opinion on something. Always ask yourself, based on what? What is your opinion based on? I could totally disagree with your opinion, but if you give me a sound reason where you came to your conclusion and how you got there, I can respect your opinion because you made the case of where it came from. Does that make sense to you?
Makes sense
I
100%.
I could disagree with your opinion, but I could respect your opinion because I understand where it came from.
Yeah, just have information to support your opinion instead of just throwing it out there.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time out of your day, and I will let you know when I post this. So I will definitely take in everything you said. I will rewatch it, and I will keep in trying to improve my writing skills, and I will ask anybody I can for help. But I thank you a lot for taking the time out your day.
All right, Keith. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
No problem.